For the past 15 years or so, give or take, the Kilo TT has been the undisputed best beginner fixed gear bike for the money at just $400. But now, in the year 2022, things have changed a little bit. The Kilo TT has gone up in price by 25% to $500. And at that price point, there's a lot more competition. And I'll tell you right now, this right here, the Santafixie Raval 2.0, is a better bike than the Kilo TT for the money. But the Kilo TT, as good as it is, does have one major caveat that prevents a lot of people from buying it. It's only available in the US. And while the Santafixie Raval is a better bike than the Kilo TT for the money in the year 2022, it also has a huge caveat. It's only available in Europe. For the first time ever, Europe has access to a bike that is better than what we have access to in the US. Starting at just 530 euros, we finally have a Kilo TT killer if you're in Europe. This is it. Just like the sponsor of this video, Wabi Cycles. If you're looking to build the buttery fixed gear of your dreams, Wabi's got you covered. Everything from the budget to the baller track components. Learn how Wabi can help you build a fixed gear that you will drool over by sticking around until the end of the video to learn more about them. With the Santafixie Raval 2.0, you're getting a lot of bike for your 530 to 550 euros. You're getting an all aluminum 6061 frame set that is an aluminum frame and an aluminum fork. A lot of people might look at the aluminum fork and scoff at it and think that any self-respecting aluminum fixed gear should have a carbon fork, but at this price point, I would much rather have an aluminum fork than a carbon fork that would explode on me and potentially be a one-way ticket to the hospital. Aluminum is a lot more reliable than carbon, so I'd rather take that when at this entry-level price point. Comes with 31.8mm cockpit for extra stiffness. Even comes with your choice of handlebars between drop bars, straight bars, risers, and bull horns. The Raval comes equipped with a San Marco Monza saddle, which I actually found to be decently comfortable for a stock bike. Pro wheel cranks, honestly perfectly fine if you're just starting out. They were perfectly fine for me, but we'll get to that later. Rounds it out with your choice of 30mm or 60mm deep rims, laced to the ever reliable seal-bearing Novatec hubs, which are silky smooth despite their incredibly low price, and tires are wrapped in either CST tires or Michelin Dynamic Classics. At this price point, just the fact that you have a choice for your ideal type of handlebars and your preferred style of wheels, that is a huge deal, since handlebars are a huge factor that determines how comfortable you'll be on your bike and how much you'll have fun riding your bike. While the 60mm deep rims certainly do look cool, I highly recommend that you go with the 30mm variant so that they'll be a lot spinnier and lightweight to ride. The Raval does come equipped with front and rear brakes, and it has a fixed cog on the rear as well as a single speed freewheel, so you can make your choice as to your preferred riding style. The one nitpick that I have with how this bike is spec'd are the pedals. Although most people, Santafixie estimates 60 to 70% of their customers are going to ride this thing as a single speed, it would have been nice to have some foot retention for the other 30% of fixed gear riders that want to take off the brakes or just have a front brake and ride it as a fixed gear, but at this price point I can't really complain too much about that. Just know that if you are riding a fixed gear, you're probably going to at the very least buy straps for these pedals, if not upgrade your entire pedal setup completely, which is what I did when I reviewed this thing. And it's not just that the Raval has good specs on paper, but it also feels really well built. So they're made in Asia, as most bikes are these days, whether they're entry level or high end. They're painted in Portugal and then assembled by Santafixie's team in Spain. If you take a look at the welds, they're pretty darn impressive. It's nice and tidy. The paint is really thick. The decals are nice and thin and under the clear coat to give the whole bike a nice sense of quality. Like you're getting something that's much better quality than the price would suggest. The total weight for my review unit, which is a 58cm bike with drop bars, and upgraded pedals and no brakes is 21 pounds. That weight is nothing to write home about, especially for an aluminum bike, but it is perfectly acceptable for your first fixed gear. And if you've never ridden a high quality bike before, this thing will feel like a rocket ship. And I'm not too bothered about that weight because when I do throw my legs over it, it does feel zippy and snappy. That's partially because of the aluminum frame and fork. Aluminum is really stiff, so when you push down on the pedals, you get a really good response out of the bike, and when you push down, you get immediate feedback that just propels you forward. The downside of aluminum compared to steel bikes, though, like the Kilo TT, is that it is a lot stiffer. That means it's less compliant. It's going to be more uncomfortable. You're going to feel the road vibrations. You're going to feel little bumps in the road a lot more. You're going to feel potholes jolt straight up through the fork and into the handlebars. But with that said, on this bike, I'm still able to lead my group rides, lead the pack, and even have to tone down a little bit to let people catch up. But with this one, if you can deal with the chatteriness of the frame set and the 25C tires, you can go pretty darn fast on this thing. With that said, it can fit up to 28C tires without brakes for you fellow fixed gear riders, so that can soften up the ride quality a little bit. I ride a 58 centimeter bike. I have pretty wide shoulders, and they only have one spec for the drop bars, which is 42 centimeters if I'm remembering correctly, and it's just too narrow for me. If you have wider shoulders and like wider bars, I would suggest that you steer clear away from the drop bars and get the risers or the straight bars. Because the bars are too narrow for my proportions, I found that I couldn't rest my weight properly on the handlebars, and it would end up hurting my wrists, my neck, and my shoulders. With that said, swap out the handlebars and that problem pretty much goes away. And the San Marco Monza saddle, although not a particularly high-end or quality San Marco saddle, I found it to be perfectly comfortable. The longest ride I did on this thing was 35 miles at a pretty fast pace, and I had no complaints from my butt. And the Pro Wheel cranks, they were perfectly acceptable. Like, they were plenty stiff, and I still felt like I was able to get to where I wanted to go. The stock gearing is a pretty standard stock gearing at 46 chainring and a 16-tooth cog in the rear. But for a lot of beginners, that might even be a little bit too high. It would have been nice to see if they could include a 17-tooth cog to make the bike ride a bit more spinnier, to let people get used to the feeling of riding something this fast rather than straining their thighs every time they go up the slightest of inclines. Again, a minor nitpick, and you'll definitely get used to it after a month or two of riding this bike, but it is something to consider. Something else to consider is that this thing does not have any bottle mounts. Like, where am I supposed to put my reasonably dangerous tapped water bottle that is organic, vegan, gluten-free, and made by Specialized in California? There's just nowhere for me to put it. And in the summer here, I mean, hell, it's September 9th, and it's 106 degrees right now. If you're wondering why I'm so dang sweaty, I just have nowhere to put it on the bike. So you're gonna have to figure out another option, like having one of those cup holders that straps to the handlebars, or one of those rocket launcher ones that go on the saddle. I don't recommend those. Compared to other fixed gears, the Santafixie Raval has a very vanilla, unoffensive ride quality, and I mean that in the best way possible. It goes exactly where you want it to go, it goes exactly as fast as you expect it to go, and it is a little bit uncomfortable. There's nothing major that I have to complain about, which isn't always the case for beginner fixed gears. Comparing the Raval more in depth to the stock baseline Kilo TT, this is just a better bike for the money. Yeah, it's aluminum instead of steel, so those are going to have different ride characteristics. One isn't necessarily better than the other. I prefer steel, so I prefer the Kilo. But if you're just starting out, you're not really going to know what you're missing out on, and aluminum is a perfectly fine material to make a bike out of. Just know it can be a little bit jolting, especially if the roads where you ride are rough. On the Kilo TT, the former king of beginner fixed gears, you do not get a choice of different handlebars, and it also does not come with seal bearing hubs. Seal bearing hubs are a great addition to any beginner fixed gear, since they run a lot smoother, and they are less maintenance, meaning you won't have to upgrade your wheel set down the line. You could realistically just ride these wheels and true them whenever they go out. Although the Raval doesn't come in as many colors as the Kilo TT, it comes in black, white, silver, and gray, so pick your favorite monochrome shade. They do allow you to choose your preferred style of wheels. Personally, my favorite obviously is the black 30mm rims with the gumwall tires. It's just super classy yet modern. This is the best looking beginner stock bike, period. This bike has no business looking this good for how much it costs. If you're in Europe, you're looking for a beginner fixed gear, this is it. This is the default beginner fixed gear for Europeans. This is the Kilo TT of Europe, and if you are in Europe, you are lucky because this is even better than the Kilo TT that us Americans have been enjoying for the past 15 years. Speaking of bikes to enjoy, this portion of the video is sponsored by Wabi Cycles. From Wabi's own meticulously hand-built wheels to the track lacrosse ready velocity coils to the ever-popular H+N archetypes laced to your favorite hubs from Phil Wood, Grand Comp, DT Swiss, and my personal favorite, the Suzu Pro Maxes. Top it off with the most reliable tires from Continental and Panaracer, throw in an EAI cog in the flavor of your choice, and your favorite chain from KMC and Azumi, and your bike will make your inner Fixie kid squeal with joy. So go ahead, check out Wabi Cycles and their component selection linked in the description. And Fixie famous shoutouts to Mario, PerezBrandon, BlackDavid, KGio, DezeraJulian, CoronaRyan, WittScott, PalangiZane, Kolnik for helping to make these fixed gear videos possible through the support on Patreon. And remember, life is short, but don't make it shorter, so be sure to ride your bike every day. Be reasonably dangerous.